Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singers, songwriters, and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is a Toronto based composer, playwright, and medical student with a keen interest in the intersections between music and science. Her musicals include Statistics from 2020. Connections running in 2019 and 2023, and The Last Piece in 2023. Her research interests include music and dementia, and the impact of music on developing brains. She made her professional orchestra compositional debut with the National Arts Centre Orchestra in 2021. She has also worked with the Rose Orchestra, the Can-Am Trio, the Mississauga Children's Chorus, and Gryphon Trio, and the Scarborough Philharmonic Orchestra. So, let's spill the tea with Shreya Jha. Welcome, Shreya.
Hello, thank you for having me.
In the intro, I mentioned that there's an intersection between medical school and the theatrical performances or the musicals that you are putting together. And one of them is the study of music and dementia. So help us understand how those two things intersect.
Yes, music and dementia intersect in a ton of different ways. I don't think we even fully understand all of the ways that they might intersect. Um, I think some of that exploration, at least for me, started with the understanding that there might be some kind of preservation of musical memory in dementia. It's well known that when you have Alzheimer's disease, a lot of your like short-term memory will go first, followed by components of long-term memory, but what we call procedural memory, which is exactly that, knowing how to do procedures, knowing how to, this is why they say that you never forget how to ride a bike, knowing how to ride a bike, play an instrument, I don't know, knit, crochet, those kinds of procedures don't leave our brain nearly as easily. So musical memory is largely preserved in folks with dementia, which is what some of my research is looking at. And because of that, music can be used to really bring both comfort and actual clinical benefit to individuals with dementia. And like I said, I think we're really only scratching the surface of what things like music therapy, musical interventions, even songwriting-based interventions can do for dementia. So based on that, I thought it would be really interesting to I had done a little bit of exploration of this first. Like I said, I'm doing some research looking at musical memory, preservation of musical memory and dementia, and I had written a piece about this for the Scarborough Philharmonic about, I think, almost 3 years ago now, so at the beginning of medical school. And then I thought, how interesting would it be to actually tell the story of someone with dementia, really get into that very vulnerable narrative arc of what it means to lose oneself. And that's when I wrote my musical, The Last Piece, about a year ago now, about which looks at a divorced couple finding each other, finding each other again, getting back into each other's lives when one of them is diagnosed with dementia and the other is his ex-partner is his healthcare contact. And it shows sort of how their story unfolds and what he's forgetting and what maintains in his brain. And it's really a look at what it means to forget yourself and how music can be used to convey that. So the last piece premiered late July last year with the help of Ontario Arts Council grants from Cahoots Theatre, as well as a grant, University of Toronto School of Graduate Studies grant. And the last piece will actually be happening again in workshop form at Hart House this coming fall. I believe it is in the first week of November, which is very exciting. I'm excited to kind of dive back and try to make some fixes to the show I wrote last year.
How did you get into writing musicals or into playwriting? Because it sounds, I mean, medical school it's and getting there, it's so much work. It's so much work, and
Yeah.
yet you find time to write musicals as well.
So before medical school, I did my undergrad was also at U of T. I did a Bachelor of Music and Composition as well as a Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience, hence the brain. And I took an extra, I think we talked about this last time, but I took an extra year to finish both of those, meaning I did my undergrad in 5 years instead of four. And my composition degree was in classical music. But about partway through my second year, I was playing for a lot of musicals on campus and writing music for some of the plays. And I was kind of itching to try out this field because it was so intriguing, kind of the number of different moving parts that are in a musical and the kind of additional vulnerability and storytelling piece that comes with writing lyrics. And not every composer that writes musicals will write their own lyrics. A lot of them will collaborate with folks, which I have done in the past as well, but I was intrigued by kind of what would it be to create the whole thing by myself to start with. I think I actually initially I wanted to collaborate with someone. I thought, okay, I can write lyrics and music and someone else can come up with the story because I don't know that I can. And then finally I thought, let me just try this myself. And at the very end of second year is when I started writing statistics, which is 6 years ago now. It's kind of wild. It's been a very long time. And then thankfully, being plugged into the U of T theater scene, there were a lot of different opportunities I could think of where I might be able to actually get this stage, including the U of T Drama Festival, which showcases new works by students every year around February. So I applied to that, not convinced I would get in. I thought this was kind of a little bit of a pipe dream. And then one of the drama societies on campus took it, and that was the first production of Statistics in February 2019. And after that, I was hooked. That's when I kind of wrote the next one the same year. Connections was the same year, and that's the bulk of what I write now. I would probably call myself a musical theater composer before I would call myself a classical composer, even though I still do write classical work.
When it comes to writing a musical, and as you said, so that you've a lot of times it's one part of it. Like you'll write the score or you write the music. Somebody else will write the lyrics, and somebody will do the an adaptation, or somebody will actually write the I'll call it the screenplay because I don't know what it is in theater, but you do it all. So what's the process for you? Where do you start? Do you start with an overarching idea for something and then kind of whittle away at the pieces? Or do you start with, in like one song, one idea and let it build from there?
So when I am writing by myself, which I've done for most of my musicals, but not all, it does start with an idea. It usually it's there's for all the past few, there's been kind of a little bit of a eureka moment of I think this is something that I need to write about. I don't quite remember that happening with statistics, but with connections, I think we didn't mention my show 18 Pals Road, but that's another one that
Mhm.
I'll be actually redeveloping with Sheridan College later this year. For each of those, it was a moment of just contemplating, or not maybe not even thinking about music and thinking, I think this is a story that needs to be written. Like I remember with the dementia show, I was actually on the phone with someone and I said it out loud to them. This was in summer 2020, saying, wait, has there ever been a musical written about dementia? Because I think there needs to be one. And after that, it's usually a little bit of, oh God, how am I going to write this? And then just some contemplation, some research. So it is a lot of like, it's like the idea comes and then I throw everything at it, like make just a giant document of like branches of that idea. And then I'll try to whittle that down to an outline. And then the songs come in. When I'm writing with someone else, which I also have done, probably my primary writing collaborator, someone named Nick Duarte, and really talented writer. And him and I have a show premiering at the end of June at the Palmerston Theatre called Two Left Feet. And in that one, he had come up with a story and he had written the bulk of the songs as well. So we discussed the plot a little bit, but in that one, my goal was very much how do I come in and make the best possible music for this show? It's a very different process, and it's nice to have a little bit of both, especially with the collaborator that you trust and really respect.
Mhm.
Um, and that one can sometimes feel a little less daunting because you have someone there with you and the ask is a little more narrow. But when it's my own, it almost feels like it's a idea comes up, something happens, and then we have an outline and somehow we create a show.
So now let's get into one of the songs that Shreya wrote. This song is the opening number from Shreya's musical Connections, which was written and premiered in 2019 and had another run in 2023, both with the Trinity College Dramatic Society at the University of Toronto. So let's take a listen to singer-songwriter Shreya Jha and her song, One Moment in Time.
You see the past and the stories of the people you meet, everything that they share at 35,000 feet, and the stories you keep in a special place of all you encountered in the aerospace, and they tie the bonds between me and you. Though we rarely go home, we have a home in our black and white crew, black and white crew. Below 35,000 feet, at the airport where there are people to meet, and places to see, and bags to retrieve, and cash to exchange, and plans to arrange, and connections to make. And it happens right here, until then the sky is brown, and the air gets on fire, as the stories fly high. Just wanna strike the sky, and we watch as it passes by, as the wings leave them behind. One moment in time.
That was One Moment in Time by Shreya Jha. Shreya, tell us about the song. What's the song about, and how does it fit in to the overall musical?
Yeah, so One Moment in Time is, like you said, the opening of Connections. Connections is a 90-minute one-act musical, largely meant for young audiences and children, that takes place over the course of a single flight connection in London Heathrow Airport. And it was actually based off the very, very early inspiration for this musical, when I first wrote it about 5 years ago, was taken from the quote in the movie Love Actually, which is a great movie. And when it says, something along the lines of, when I feel down about the state of the world, I often like to look at the arrivals gate at London Heathrow Airport. And he goes on to talk about how love actually is everywhere. And it got me thinking about, all the varying emotions that we see in an airport and how it's really a place unlike any other. And the first version, I think, of the show was a little bit more serious. And then I tried to really lean into all the ridiculousness that can happen at an airport. So we follow four characters traveling, a aspiring vlogger or influencer and her fiance, a sort of self-proclaimed like wine mom, man hater kind of character, and a character nobody knows anything about except that he's a diplomat who believes in the value of moisturizing. And the four of them are in this airport and their journeys kind of intersect as sort of things go down, and they need to help each other out. I don't want to spoil too much in case you ever end up seeing it. But Connections it's always been one of my favorite shows to work on, because it's kind of pure chaos and happiness, and really leans into the idea of all types of love, including friend, family, and romantic love. I really like to emphasize non-romantic love in a lot of my shows, because I think it's underrepresented in our sort of canon of media. And One Moment in Time starts out the show with these characters on the plane as it's landing in Heathrow, and they're singing about sort of this moment that you're in the sky with everybody else, and how kind of magical that can be. And we get introduced to the characters and the flight attendants who are the through line of this story. And that was the 2023 company of Connections who was singing that. They were a really amazing cast, one of my absolute favorite group of people to work with. And it was edited by a wonderful friend of mine and audio engineer, music who works at SOCAN in music publishing, and it's just a really talented arranger and editor overall. Her name is Kristen Antunes. So thank you, Kristen.
How do people find out more about what you're up to on the musical scene? Is there a website they can go to find out what you're up to? What are your socials so they can keep track of your brilliant mind and what you're bringing to us next on the stage?
Yes, you can go to Shreya Jha Music. It's my first name, last name, music.com. Or Instagram. On Instagram, it's Shreya Jha Music. Both of those will have, probably Instagram will have more frequent updates, honestly. But the website will also have past recordings. And if you want to follow statistics, which is a little bit quiet right now, but we will have some exciting updates before the end of the year. That's Statistics the Musical on Instagram.
Shreya, spell it out for our listeners so they don't make any errors when they're looking for your website.
That's SHREYAJHA music.com.
We have been in conversation with Shreya Jha. Shreya, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.